recording begins, please. Okay, it has started. So good morning, children. We will continue with the chapter which we started yesterday. All of you, are you there? The medieval architecture. Now we come on to the next heading, the Sultanate period or the Indo-Islamic architecture. Now, yesterday, let me just please, the last two. Now, yesterday we were reading about the North Indian style and the South Indian style of building temples as the major monuments of the olden times. Then in the south, we talked of the Cholas, the Rajputas, the Chalukyas, all these kingdoms with their kings, they preferred the architectural skills to be refined, and also the temples were built to show the power and prestige of the king. Clear? We had covered this till yesterday. Now today we will be talking about the Sultanate period. That means the time when the slaves, the Qutbuddin Aibak, the slave dynasty came, then the Khaljis, then the Tughlaqs and all, then the Lodhis, the Sayyids and the Lodhis, all these kings, they came. Clear? So we will be talking about the Sultanate period and the work which was done during this period. Now obviously, the Indian style was then, with the coming of these people, the Indian style got mixed up with Indo-Islamic style, isn't it? Because they learned something from them and they learned something from Islam. Clear? Because of the mixture of people coming here, it was then that the Indo-Islamic way of architecture began. Clear? So this is the heading and we'll begin now. With the coming of the Muslims to India, many new features came to be introduced in buildings. The development of a Muslim style of architecture of this period can be called Indo-Islamic art. Now, Indian architecture was by Islamic art. With the Turks and Afghans and Mughals, the art form was then, when the structures were made, were called Indo-Islamic. Okay, because it had the Indian architecture, which was influenced by the Muslim art. Okay, the Indo-Islamic style was neither strictly Islamic nor strictly Hindu. So you cannot specifically say that this was a Hindu architecture. Neither can you say this was a Muslim architecture. It was amalgamation of both, mixture of both. That was called as Indo-Islamic. Clear? Moving further. The architecture of the medieval period can be divided into two main categories. They are the Delhi or the imperial style and the Mughal architecture. Please underline the two styles, the imperial style or Delhi style, and the other is the Mughal architecture. Now, the imperial style developed under the patronage of the Sultans of Delhi, and the Mughal architecture was a blend of Islamic architecture of Central Asia and the Hindu architecture of India. So let me tell you, the whole medieval Indian history is divided into early medieval phase and later. You remember that? Now, early was occupied by the Sultanate rulers, the Tughlaqs, the Khaljis, the slave dynasty and all. Clear? Till the last fight, first battle of Panipat, Ibrahim Lodi and Babur. Clear? Now, after Babur till Aurangzeb was the time which was called as Mughal period. Clear? So they are telling you that earlier style, it was called the Delhi style or the imperial style. Whereas once the Mughals came, it was known as the Mughal architecture. Is this much clear to you? I would like that last child to shift in that corner. Please maintain distance. He doesn't have a book. Please don't talk then. Okay. And father has strictly said not to share anything, but it's okay. Who's clicking photographs? Please delete this before I wind up the class and see this photograph. Okay. Now features. The most important symbol of Indo-Islamic architecture in India is the tomb or mausoleums. Please underline tomb or the mausoleums, which evolved from the basic cube and hemisphere of the early phase into a more detailed form during the Mughal period. So earlier, the tombs were made in an oval shape or in a very unpeculiar way, in a cube kind of a structure it was. Then later on, it was given a systematic and detailing. Okay? In the Mughal period, multiple chambers were made and tombs were set in gardens known as the Charbagh. Please see this structure here, Lodi tomb. Can you see the picture? Now here, the Lodi tomb is, the structure is made, whereas the tomb was, and there was a proper layout of a garden after that, okay, which was known as Charbagh. Okay, the tomb chamber houses the cenotaph, below which is the grave. The most famous example of tomb in India is the Taj Mahal. Now, just above the cenotaph, that means the gold, the central structure, spherical structure on top, just below it was the tomb where the bodies were buried of the kings or the queens. Clear? And the living live example of a tomb is the Taj Mahal. Okay? Okay? Now, moving further, the Mughal architecture occupies a significant place in the history of Indian architecture. The Mughal architecture developed with the efforts of Akbar. Please underline, he was the one who first, recreated the zeal of architectural skills. Okay, so it was Akbar who gave a front foot for this new way of architecture. Akbar clearly incorporated foreign influences into indigenous style. Some of the basic features of the Mughal architecture are the round domes. Please underline the basic structure which they made. It was round domes, high minarets, matlab ki uchi uchi minare. High minarets are the uchi minare. Can you see? Imagine Taj Mahal. It's a domed structure with 4 protruding pillars. Remember? So high minarets. Then mehrabs. What are mehrabs? The circular areas, the small circular areas all around. All the toppings were done with basically the circular areas. Okay? So those were mehrabs. Then pillars. Pillars were there. In the Taj Mahal inside, you could see the structure has number of pillars to hold the structure. Clear? Open courtyards. You can see in front in Taj Mahal also there's open garden all side. I mean, Chigana, you've seen it. So there are open courtyards, not exactly garden. Courtyard is the, supposing this is the structure, then a base is given, a huge platform is given. That is a courtyard. Okay. And then below it is the garden. Okay. So that's the courtyard is the open structure, open space. Okay, a notable feature of the Mughal architecture was the use of red sandstone. So basically they used red sandstones and also later on white marble. Okay, it is interesting to note that red sandstone was used for construction of huge buildings and forts. However, red sandstone was replaced with white marbles, underlined, during the later period when the stress was more on beautifying of the buildings with the use of colored designs, underline colored designs, precious and semi-precious stones, gold and silver waters, and minute carvings. Now, structures were basically decorated with gold and silver water. Apart from this, the red sandstone forts and all were now replaced with white marbles. When the sense of beauty increased, they wanted the monuments to be more beautiful. So they started using white marbles. And again, Taj Mahal is the living example of white marble structure. Yeah. Verses from the Holy Quran were also engraved on some. In many structures, typical Hindu motifs such as swastik, lotus, and bell were used. Underline these 3 words. Swastik, lotus, and bell were used. Now, while they were drawing the carvings of the monuments, they not only wrote the Islamic verses from the Holy Quran, but there are also scenes of a swastika nishan. Have you seen a swastika nishan with a cross and like this? With a swastika nishan, you see? And then a lotus, which is again considered very pious in Hindus, and bells. Okay, So these motifs were also present apart from the Quranic verses which were engraved. दीवारों पर लिखी गई थी कुरान की verses. Okay. Next, we talk of monuments. The Sultans of Delhi built many monuments. Qutbuddin Aibak built the Quwat ul Islam Mosque. Underline Qutbuddin Aibak. Underline Quwat ul Mosque. What else did he build? Without seeing in the book, can you say?
Ma'am, Qutub Minar.
Yes, Qutub Minar. Very good. So please underline Qutbuddin Aibak and Quwatul Islam Mosque in Delhi and Adhai Din Ka Chopra in Ajmer. He also started the construction of Qutub Minar. It was ultimately completed by Iltutmish. So though it began with Qutbuddin Aibak, but it was completed by Iltutmish. Char Jabag, they have written here Char Jabag, actually just Char Bagh. Okay, don't cut it, don't cut it. We'll follow what the book says. I'm telling you, I'm a history teacher and I'm a merit holder, so I'm just telling you, Char Bagh it is called. Okay, but here it is written Char Jabag, so we'll follow in the exam. If it comes, we'll write anyhow Char Jabag. Okay, okay. Just as if you remember, Qutbuddin was called as Lakh Baksh, and here it was written Lal Baksh. You remember? So I told you the correct word, but then I followed ki theek hai bhaiya lal likha hai, lal padho. ठीक है ना? The correct word is Lakh Baksh. Okay? For your knowledge, you should always know the correct thing. Changes mat karo book mein. ठीक है? Okay. The Qutub Minar is a masterpiece of Indo-Islamic architecture. It was designed by Muslim architects but built by Hindu craftsmen. It is 240 feet high. Please underline the height. The Qutub Minar is considered one of the wonders of the medieval world. Alauddin Khilji built Alai Minar, underline Alauddin Khilji, and write underline Alai Minar and Alai Darwaza in 1311. Please underline the year also. It is made of red sandstone. Then the Tughlaq, Sayyid and Lodi monuments include the tomb of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, the Tughlaqabad Fort, Firoz Shah Kotla, the tomb of Muhammad Shah Sayyid, the tomb of Sikandar Lodi, and many more structures in and around Delhi. So they have clubbed in all the other dynasties, Tughlaq, Sayyids, and Lodis, and they have told you about the various monuments which were constructed during these times under them. Specifically, more they built on tombs. Okay? Next, we come on to the regional kingdoms. That means during that time, the other small regional kingdoms, regions wise, the small demarcations, and the kings who ruled them, their kingdoms. Okay? So let us see. The Indo-Islamic style of architecture influenced the regional kingdoms also. Ahmad Shah of Gujarat, please underline Ahmad Shah Gujarat, founded Ahmedabad and decorated it with beautiful structures. Please underline Ahmad Shah, underline Gujarat, and Ahmedabad was made by him. It was beautified by him. And if you know it, it's one of the very prominent cities of Gujarat still. Okay. The rulers of Malwa built the Jama Masjid, the Hindola Mahal, the Ashrafi Mahal, and the Jahaz Mahal in Mandu, a place called Mandu, which was where the rulers of Malwa were living. They built these structures. That Mandu, no, only Mandu, not Kathmandu. Kathmandu is in Nepal. Then Ilyas Shahi and Hussain Shahi rulers of Bengal constructed Adina Masjid and the Dakhil Darwaza in Bengal. Ibrahim Shah Sharki built the Atala Masjid at Jaunpur. Now these are the names of the various monuments and the kings who made them. You need to know them. Clear? Next, Rajput kingdoms, the regional kingdoms, one among them were the Rajputs. They occupied a larger region. That is why they are given as a separate heading. Clear? Let us go for Rajputs. The rulers of the small kingdoms in the Rajputana region built many forts. The Mehergarh fort in Jodhpur and the fort at Chittor are massive structures. Rana Kumbha of Mewar built the famous Victory Tower at Chittor. Can you see the picture on your right hand side in your books? The Victory Tower is made and it was done by Rana Kumbha. He was a king of Chittor. It was a victory tower he had made there. Now, in the later medieval period, from the 15th century onwards, the Hindu princes built large palaces in Rajputana and Bundelkhand. The great place at Gwalior, the great palace at Gwalior, partly built by Man Singh in 1486 to 1516, is famous for its walled towers and imposing gates. So, if you have seen a Gwalior fort anyhow, if not, then please Google search the photographs of these old forts. You will see. Okay, Mehergarh Fort and these Gwalior Fort. If you see, you'll find them as massive structures. They are very huge structures. Okay. Then the magnificent palace of Datia, built by Bir Singh in the 17th century, is the best example of Hindu architecture. The palace of Ambar was also built in the 17th century. The Jodhpur fort, with its tremendous bastion and the old palace, are among the best examples of Hindu architecture. Clear? And here I'm saying Hindu architecture. I'm not saying Hindu in Indo-Islamic. Okay? Here still basic Hindu structures were constructed. Now we talk of Vijayanagar. Vijayanagar is in south. It is again a regional kingdom. Okay, we will see the capital of the Vijayanagar Empire was Hampi. Underline the word Hampi. It was the capital of Vijayanagar. It had beautiful buildings, especially temples. The Vithala Swami temple and Virupaksha temple and the Hazara Rama temple are fine specimens of temple architecture under the Vijayanagar rulers. So you need to know these names by all means. Please take permission when you're drinking water. That amounts to my disrespect in the class. If you'll take permission, I'll not say no. Hai? So please do take permission. Then we come on to Bahmani kingdom. The Bahmani sultans built numerous mosques, madrasas, and libraries. Their most famous monuments are, please underline, Jama Masjid at Gulbarga, the Madrasa of Muhammad Ghawan and his tomb at Bidar. The Gol Gumbaz at Bijapur was built by Bijapuri rulers, the successors of the Bahmanis. It has many features borrowed from the architectural style of the Bahmanis. So they have told you about the regional kingdoms and the various monuments built under them. Clear till here? You can see that there is a lot of learning in this, isn't it? Next, we come on to the Mughal period and we'll see under Babur, Humayun, etc. what all was built and how it was done. Now, the Mughal period. The period of the Mughals saw architecture at its peak in terms of both number and style. The Mughals built many forts, palaces, gates, public buildings, mosques, baulis. They also laid out many gardens with running water. Now we come on to Babur. Babur introduced the concept of garden palaces in India. Underline garden palaces. He built palaces at, underline, Agra, Sikri, Dholpur, and laid out many gardens around the palaces. He also built a mosque at Panipat. Please just quickly underline these points and you need to remember them. Next, we come on to Humayun. The architectural achievements of Humayun were limited. His tomb was built in Delhi by his widow, Hamida Banu Begum. Please underline the name of the female, Hamida Banu Begum. She was the widow of Humayun. The tomb was a double dome, was a double structure. Okay. Now we talk of the Surs. You remember Sher Shah Suri? He had come just for 5 years. Taken. Now the Sur dynasty gave a new impetus to architecture. Sher Shah's mausoleum, please underline, at Sasaram, Bihar, is situated in the middle of a lake. It has a huge dome. The Purana Killa, that is old fort at Delhi, is also considered an architectural marvel. The Qila-e-Kuhna Masjid and Sher Mandal are two beautiful structures in this complex. So Sher Shah, when he came only for 5 years, see, these are the works that he had put forward. Clear? Next we come on to Akbar. Akbar's reign saw the fusion of Persian, Central Asian, and Indian styles of architecture and the creation of new style. Please underline Persian, Central Asian, and Indian style. Mixture from everything, every good was taken by him to bring the architectural skill to its zeal. Okay. Okay. This can be seen in the buildings at Fatehpur Sikri, the new capital that Akbar built near Agra. The buildings here, such as the Buland Darwaza, Panch Mahal, Palace of Birbal, Jodhabai's Palace, Diwan-e Khas, Diwan-e Am, etc., are built of red sandstone. The tomb of Sheikh Salim Chishti is also located in Fatehpur Sikri. It is built of white marble. Akbar also built forts, palaces, and tombs. The Agra fort is an impressive structure. Please underline Agra fort. It has the beautiful Jahangiri Mahal within it. The tomb of Humayun at Delhi is another fine example of the architectural style of this period. The tomb, built on a raised platform, is situated in the middle of a garden. The tomb has both Indian and Persian architectural features. At the entrance to the tomb is a large gateway. There's a huge gate. Okay. Then coming to Jahangir, many of the Muslim rulers created large gardens with water fountains and canals at many places in North India. Among the Mughal emperors, Babur and Jahangir were particularly fond of gardens. Please underline this. Babur and Jahangir both were fond of gardens. Jahangir erected Shalimar Gardens and Nishad Gardens in Kashmir. Okay. Jahangir also built the tomb of Akbar at Sikandara, that is near Agra. Okay. The tomb has a gateway with 4 minarets in white marble at the 4 corners. The main tomb is decorated with white marble and colored stones. Now, the tomb of Itimat-ud-Dawla at Agra was also built during the reign of Jahangir. You have to remember these places and the construction done by the kings. Next, we come on to Shah Jahan. Read about Shah Jahan's architectural achievements in the case study section. Because he has done in great detail the wonder. One of the wonders he has constructed, that is Taj Mahal. So we'll go on there and then read it. Let's come on to Aurangzeb before we finish. Architectural innovations stopped under Aurangzeb. There were no encouragements for architecture now under Aurangzeb. Most of his buildings were mere copies of the earlier ones. They also lacked the sense of proportion and an attention to detail, which characterized the building of Shah Jahan. The tomb of Rabia Durrani, please underline, at Aurangabad is a poor imitation of Taj Mahal. The Badshahi Masjid at Lahore was also completed during Aurangzeb's reign. So they are telling you that Aurangzeb was not such a master builder and he could only create replicas. That means he could only copy what was done earlier. And he tried to make his own wife's tomb, Rabia Durrani's tomb, which was not so impressive and accurate. Okay, we stop here for today. Everything clear here? Can you leave a thumb up so that I understand that you've understood?